in this area will see it as a referendum on Sir Keir Starmer's leadership. It's a by-election. It doesn't choose the government, it just chooses the parliamentary candidate for this area. And I think they will come out and give him a kick-in. I think some will go to the Greens, but a lot will come to Reform UK. Because what we're hearing on the doorstep in this area is that people are fed up with this Labour government. They're fed up with the previous MP who's just stood down, and they're fed up with Keir Starmer. They want change. They want something completely different. And we've now got a man who's going to walk through that door in a minute, and we're going to introduce him to you all. He's going to be a great candidate for us. He's a man that's, like I say, he's got a strong connection to this area. He's a man that is fearless. He will debate anybody at any time, any venue. The left can't cope with him. And many of you may know him from his TV appearances and some of our rallies and conferences. He's going to be up here for the next 4 weeks, rattling doors, speaking to people, getting people on board, getting our volunteers out, getting the People's Army out to make sure that we win on February the 26th. He's going to come through that door now. It's Matt Goodwin. Matt. Go for it.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the people of Gorton and Denton for this opportunity to make political history. And that's what we're going to do in this seat. This by-election is actually a referendum. It's a referendum on Keir Starmer. Let me say that again. This by-election is a referendum on Keir Starmer. It's a chance for the hard-working, law-abiding, tax-paying people from this seat to have their say on Keir Starmer and to make political history. And ask yourself, what have we seen since Keir Starmer came to power 18 months ago? Taxes are up, unemployment is up, energy bills are up, the cost of living crisis is getting worse, the number of small boats has never been higher, the number of homes that are going to illegal immigrants, including seats like this one, houses for multiple occupancy, have never been higher, all paid for by the hard-working British people. And at the same time, our living standards are down, wage growth is slowing, soft on crime policies have become normal in this country, criminals are going unpunished, prisoners are being released early, shoplifting has somehow become acceptable, elections are being cancelled, democracy is being postponed, and our small businesses and our high streets are being decimated by record taxes, regulation, and business rates. And I don't know about you, but I'm utterly sick and tired of watching our great country, the place that we all love, being pushed further and further into managed decline. And astonishingly, Keir Starmer even waited until the last possible moment, resisted until the last possible moment to hold a national inquiry into the mass rape and sexual abuse of white working class kids from cities like this one. And that tells you all you need to know about the guy in number 10 Downing Street. Everybody comes first except the British people. So today I'm standing here to say what I think many people in Gorton and Denton are thinking and feeling, which is enough is enough. This by-election, this referendum is our chance to send a message that Keir Starmer, that Westminster and the country cannot ignore. The Tories cannot send that message. They are imploding. The Tories are a wasted vote. The Greens cannot send that message. A vote for Greens is a vote for open borders, the legalisation of drugs, men in women's spaces, more endless chaos of the kind you see around you today. And the Labour Party certainly can't send that message because, as we've seen, they're more interested in fighting among themselves than actually speaking up and defending good, honest, decent, hard-working Brits. Only reform can send that message. Only reform can get rid of Keir Starmer. And I will send that message without fear or apology. I am not a career politician. I am not a Tory. I am not part of the establishment. I am not part of the Westminster blob. I am like many people in this seat and millions of people in this country, hard-working taxpayers who are just fed up of watching what is happening to their communities and to their home. And let me say something about this area. Some of you, many of you perhaps won't know too much about my life. Manchester made me. I'm incredibly grateful to Manchester. My grandfather worked 7 days a week in a steel factory a few miles up the road. My grandmother worked for the University of Salford. Both my parents worked for the National Health Service defending the NHS in Manchester. And when I became the first person in my family lucky enough to go to university, which city opened up its arms and let me in? Manchester. I went to the University of Salford, round the corner from where my grandfather had worked in the steel factory. And actually, I worked my way through university, and I worked for a fast food chain. And the funny thing about this is I ended up delivering pizzas in this seat 20 years ago. I could deliver 3 pizzas in 30 minutes, which is a record. And it was Manchester that gave me my first start in life. And when I got my first proper job, it was Manchester that welcomed me back with open arms. And I went to work for the university, and I spent the happiest years of my life in Manchester, living up the road, having a great time. So I'm with you here today, and I say this genuinely. I'm not a career politician. I am absolutely at a loss with what is happening to our country. And I think we are worth so much more than what we see around us today. And I want to try and give something back to this area that's always supported me. And let me be blunt. I have a national voice. I won't be ignored. And that means the people of Gorton and Denton won't be ignored either. Westminster are going to have to listen to what I have to say. My promise to the local voters is simple, but authentic. It's real. I will serve you. I will work for you. I will fight for you. I will make sure you are heard. I will make sure you are respected. And I will make sure you are never ignored again. That is my promise. So to the people of Gorton and Denton, let me just say, we can make history here together, and we can get your voice back onto the national political landscape, and we can send that message, a message that says the British people are awake, the British people are watching, the forgotten majority in this country will no longer be taken for granted by Labour, by the Tories, and by more woke madness pushed by Zach Polanski and the Greens. This is your moment, a chance to make history, a chance to say enough is enough. Vote reform, vote for me, Matt Goodwin. Let's send Keir Starmer a message. Let's have our say in this referendum, and let's send Keir Starmer to where he belongs, and let's get him out of number 10 Downing Street. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think Matt's quite right. This is going to be a real test of Keir Starmer's leadership and a key battleground in the run-up to the next general election. So we've got some questions for the press now. Did Sam Coates turn up in the end? Sorry, Sam.
There's a large South Asian population in this seat, a large Muslim population in this seat. What's your message to them?
My message to everybody in this seat is if you are working hard, paying taxes, contributing to this economy, you should be as concerned by what's happening in number 10 Downing Street as I am. We have got a government under Keir Starmer that is clearly not in touch with the people in this seat. It's not about what your religion is. It's not about what your race is, what your ethnicity is. It's about whether or not you play by the rules, whether or not you feel that you're being respected, you feel the system is being fair to you, whether you can set up a business and make it thrive, whether your streets are safe, whether your high street is actually a place that fills you with pride. I don't view it in those divisive terms, Sam. I think lots of people in this seat are going to be saying, look, we've had the uniparty in this area all of our lives. And what's changed?
OK, thanks, Matt. I don't know why anybody would single out one community, but we'll go to Kevin Fitzpatrick from the BBC.
Over here. Are you glad that Andy Burnham isn't running? And how do you respond to his argument for him needing to stand that he was trying to put an end to the divisiveness in politics, which I guess he was implying that was reform?
Well, my argument would be Labour are clearly more interested in squabbling among themselves than actually representing and defending and working for the interests of people in the seat of Gorton and Denton. That is clearly what's been going on the last few days. I mean, this Labour government is so out of touch with the country, it's so out of touch with the public mood on mass immigration, broken borders, energy bills, cost of living, Chagos, I could go on and on. We have had, 13 U-turns? Prime Minister that's clearly not at all in touch with the British people. I mean, the thing that I find so striking about Keir Starmer is I don't think he understands the British people. I don't think he really connects with the country in a way that a Prime Minister should. So, look, I mean, this is ultimately Labour's seat to lose, right? This is one of the safest Labour seats in the country. Everyone who wants change is going to have to really get behind our campaign. Is going to have to help us get across the line. It's going to be a difficult campaign. I'm convinced we can win it. I'm convinced we can actually defeat Labour in this seat. I don't really think this is about Andy Burnham anymore. I think this is about putting hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding British people where they belong, which is first.
Yeah, 13 U-turns, you said, Matt. I think there's another one coming this afternoon on business rates. We'll go now to Helena Vesti, Manchester Evening News.
One of Reform's policies is to scrap Northern Powerhouse Rail, which will be really monumental, those changes, for a lot of people here in this constituency who are commuters through Manchester and the rest of the north and are really crying out for improvements to rail infrastructure. What do you say to them if they feel let down that Reform could potentially scrap NPR?
I think fundamentally Reform is the only way in which people in seats like this can ensure their voice and their views on issues like transport, crime, immigration, HMOs, decline of our high streets is actually put onto the agenda. I don't think that what we're going to see in this constituency are people who are going to be wanting anything that looks remotely like the status quo, anything that's gone before, anything that's been pushed by Labour and the Tories. They're going to want a complete break from that, and they're going to want change. And I think fundamentally, look, my view is where the agenda on levelling up went wrong is it was never really taken seriously by either the Tories or the Labour Party. It was never really developed into a serious strategy. There was never really a sincerity to it, an authenticity to it. I think people saw it as a bit of a bolt-on. Let's chuck the North a few scraps. I don't think we've ever really had proper political power, proper political representation given to areas outside of London, Oxford and Cambridge. And I think fundamentally Reform will change that. I think you'll see that not only at this by-election, I think you'll see it at the spring elections, you'll see it at the local elections. And ultimately, to me, just lastly, this is about political power. And my view is London has had far too much political, economic and cultural power. And we need to start putting that power back in the hands of local people and areas outside of the south.
Yes, and of course we do want a better transport system for this region, but we want one that works properly and one that offers good value for money. Number 7, Peter Snepvangers, the Daily Telegraph.
Peter here from the Daily Telegraph. Okay. You've said so yourself, this is a very safe seat for Labour and has been for a very long time. So there are people here who have voted their whole lives Labour and it's in their blood. What's your message to them? How do you convince them? They might be frustrated with Starmer, but they can't not vote for Labour. How do you convince them?
Well, I'll go first on this one, Peter. I've been on that journey. I stood in a seat that was a Labour stronghold for many, many years. This is a Labour seat that was always had a Labour council, always had a Labour MP, voted Brexit in 2016, and in 2019 voted Conservative for the very first time. They voted for me. They did that. I know for my parents, for example, going to vote Tory for the first time was a very daunting thing after they were lifetime Labour voters. But many people in my constituency did that, and many millions around the country did that. Voters are much more nimble these days. They think about it a lot more, and they will punish any party at the ballot box who doesn't do what they promised at the general election, the previous general election. And people are looking at Reform UK now. They're saying what's happening in Parliament. They're saying what's happening in the country, and they know that their vote matters. And we saw it with Sarah in Runcorn last year. Safe Labour seat, I think it was the 15th or 16th. I think this one is about the 6th or 7th safe Labour. There's no safe Labour seats anymore. And these voters, they are not daft, they're not stupid. If you don't do what you're employed to do, they will come out and they will punish you. And they will punish Labour on February the 26th.
Just add one thing to that. Recent days we've had a national debate about Conservatives moving over to Reform. I think there is actually something interesting in this seat, which is, as I said in my speech, I'm not a Tory, okay? There's a time in my life when I voted, believe it or not, at a general election for the Labour Party, okay? And the journey that I've been on is the same political journey that I think millions of people in this country have been on, including many people in this seat. Yeah. And they've looked at two parties that perhaps once upon a time looked like common sense, sounded like common sense, but they've watched them morph into something that doesn't represent the British people at all. Broken borders, open borders, mass uncontrolled migration, pushing to scrap jury trials, soft on crime policies, imposing HMOs on communities like this one that never even asked for it, never voted for it. And so as I went on that journey, I realised a lot of people around me in the country were going on the same journey as I was. So I would just say to journalists in the room, we've had a debate in the last few weeks, right, about reform. I would just remind you that there are lots of people in this country too that are going on different political journeys that are arriving at the same outcome.
Adam Clark, Roch Valley Radio.
Good afternoon. Just talking more locally, what's the single concrete change you would deliver for Denton in Gorton your first year, potentially, as an MP? Not a national slogan, but something the residents here would directly be impacted by.
It's not a politician's answer. There's not one thing. Let me give you a few things. I think people locally are very angry about HMOs. Yeah. I think they're very angry about what's happening to the high street and what used to be thriving markets and what's happened to the town centres. I think they're very annoyed about crime and antisocial behaviour. And as I said in my speech, at what point did it become acceptable to just allow shoplifting and antisocial behaviour in this country? When did that become acceptable? It seems that now we just shrug our shoulders and don't do anything about it.
I think you're right, Matt. I think this community is not dissimilar from a lot of communities around the country. HMOs, Matt makes a great point, it's a big problem in my community. People of these communities aren't asked if they want an HMO, on their street, 2 or 3 HMOs popping up with, upwards of 4 or 5 single young men moving into these places, not working, creating all sorts of mayhem, committing crimes, terrorising neighbourhoods. We don't want it. I don't want it on my street. And I'm sure the decent people of Gorton and Denton don't want it on their street. And Matt will be a great champion because there are powers that the local council, there's legislation in place they can use to stop this, but they refuse to do it. Gary Carter, the correspondent.
Hi there. Just again, a local one. There's been a few developments in Denton particularly that looks to rejuvenate the town. In fact, we're actually sat in one now. If Reform win, would you look to work with the people looking to invest in Denton and create it into a more thriving town centre?
Yeah, as I said, I think that's one of the big issues locally. But in order to do that, you've got to start supporting small businesses much more than we're doing currently. And what we're doing is we're crippling small businesses in this seat, like we're crippling them across the country, with excessive regulation, high taxes, high business rates. So businesses are going bust. I mean, you know, we are sucking the lifeblood out of our economy by smashing the very things that used to drive this economy and used to make us a prosperous nation. Small businesses, family-run businesses. And the Labour Party, the Labour government, clearly doesn't get it. I mean, if you look at the front bench, you can understand why they don't get it. I don't think there's anybody that's actually built a business on the front bench of the Labour government. But there's that view that, well, if we just clobber everybody with taxes and regulation and new laws, the dynamism and the prosperity gets sucked out of it. And that's what we see in the high street. Vape shops, endless fast food shops. It doesn't look like the high street that I remember when I was a kid. And we've seen that over the last, I think, 10, 20 years, and it's accelerated. We've got to do something. Just briefly, before I go back to Lee, just to go back to this question, the similar questions. I think there's a view locally that relative to other parts of Greater Manchester, this seat has been neglected, and this seat has been left behind, and this seat has been ignored. And I think one thing that would help in a meaningful way is having somebody in this seat that is used to actually squaring up with Westminster and calling out nonsense and actually saying it as it is. And the one thing that this campaign can bring is that attention, is a champion that would force Westminster to say, oh, okay, we actually have to listen to this. And that's hopefully what we can bring.
I'll just add to that, Matt. I'll challenge anybody to go around the northern and Midland towns and look to see what they've all got in common. And you will notice that the high streets are in decline. You will notice that the shops, like Matt says, aren't what they used to be. They're different types of shops. Crime is rife. There's dealing on street corners. And what have all these towns and villages got in common? They've always had a Labour MP. They've always had a Labour council. And many of these bigger towns have got Labour mayors. Oh, and by the way, they've all ignored the grooming gangs. I'll just move on. James Tozer, Daily Mail.
Thank you, Mr Goodwin. You've spoken about obviously the recent defections from the Conservatives. Would you welcome former Conservative ministers like Nadhim Zahawi and Suella Braverman coming here to campaign on your behalf?
Well, my view has always been that reform, when Nigel Farage really came back to reform and got it going at the 24 general election, he was quite clear when he called it a people's revolt. Now, my view has always been that the power behind this people's revolt has to, as the name implied, it has to come from the people from across the political spectrum. Left, right, centre, none of the above. That's what will give this strength, and ultimately that's what will fix our political system and fix the country. So I've never personally viewed, and I don't think people at the top of reform view it this way, I've never viewed it as a sort of Tory party 2.0. I've got lots of friends in the party who are former Labour people, former Lib Dem people, none of the above people. And to me, that's where the power of this movement really lies. Because what we are living through is truly historic. This is the most significant insurgency since the rise of the Labour Party 100 years ago, when it replaced the Liberals. I mean, this is a seismic political revolution that we are all living through. And I think the reason it is so strong and persistent is because the people in seats like Gorton and Denton are saying, these two parties, they don't come close to representing my values anymore. They're both okay with mass migration. They're both okay with net zero. They're both okay with woke ideology, which they've jammed down our throats for the last 20 years. They're both okay, basically, with staying in the European Convention on Human Rights. They're both okay with the status quo. And I think many people now can sense that. So I think it's about a broad tent and getting that broad tent together, but keeping the British people at the heart of it.
On the way here today, I stopped at a cafe, and a chap came out in the car park and said to me, "Is it Lee, the Reform MP?" And I said, "Yeah." And he put his hand out and shook it, and he said, "Please carry on what you're doing. You've got millions of people behind you in this country. We need you. You're our last hope." And I get that everywhere we go in the country. And Reform UK are the country's last hope. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight to get Matt elected. But we're going to have to go now, because we've got to go and rattle some doors. Matt's going to go to his old stomping grounds in Manchester, knock some doors, speak to some people and tell them why they should vote for Reform UK on February 26th. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.